What is the PYP? The PYP is a program that is designed to target students ages 3 until 12 and focuses on developing them as inquirers both inside and outside of the classroom to become global learners.
So, Ms. Taryn, could you explain to us the importance of incorporating collaborative inquiry into the classroom?
So I think the real importance of incorporating collaborative inquiry into the classroom is simply because that's just how the world works. If you look at any discipline or any area of knowledge, you'll see people together inquiring into something, asking questions, finding information, sharing their understanding, taking action from that. So I think that because that's just how natural human learning happens, that it's a real strength for us to acknowledge that and to make sure that's what we're doing in our classrooms. And I think breaking away from what people are calling like school land, where learning's quite disconnected and encapsulated, and kind of letting go of some of those practices and really reflecting on how humans in the real world learn and how the world works, and bringing that into the classroom, we'll get more at that authentic, genuine learning.
All right. And why do we focus on using inquiry in our classrooms to support, teaching in general?
So similar with that, I think that if you were to think about anything that you've ever learned outside of a classroom, you could probably plot out that process of being curious about something, interested in something, having questions, getting your information, talking to people, making your conclusions and sharing them, which really, if you map it out, is the inquiry process. So I think it's not necessarily something new, but it's noticing something that's part of human nature and part of how humans learn, and making that into a process that teachers can then use and bring into their classroom, so that we have our children kind of doing authentic, genuine learning about what they're interested in and following that natural process. And I think the big idea is acknowledging that being a human is all about learning about the world and learning about life, and we as teachers, our job is not necessarily to make learning happen, but more to let learning happen and to make sure that what we're doing is not blocking those natural processes and that natural curiosity and interest in learning about the world.
All right. And what are some forms of teaching techniques that teachers are encouraged to use to promote inquiry in the learning atmosphere of the classroom?
For me, this is a tricky question. I'm still relatively new to inquiry, but after 2.5 years, for me, I think it's less about techniques and more about shift in thinking. So I know a lot of interesting articles and research says that inquiry is a stance. It's not necessarily a collection of techniques. And I think that's the hardest thing for people when they're new to inquiry, is that they're looking for, how do I do it? What can I use? What can I try? And all of those processes come after the mind shift that inquiry is not necessarily something you do, but a different way of thinking about education. So I think that is the longest process, to have that mind shift of what inquiry is all about. And then after you start thinking about teaching and learning that way, then everything else falls into place, and you're able to really value your student questions and have learners have voice and choice in their learning experience, and take more of the role of being a facilitator on the side as opposed to the keeper of content and information. So for me, I think that's a really popular question, like what are the techniques, what can I do, what does it look like? And I always have a hard time answering that, because for me that's secondary after really thinking about learning and shifting your mind to understand that inquiry is a way of being and a way of thinking, and not necessarily a collection of strategies.
All right. And what are some of the technologies that we can use within inquiry to help, promote collaborative learning, specifically considering some of our kids are SLL learners?
So I think the relationship between technology and learning for me is an interesting one. I think there's a lot of ways that teachers can use technology that enhance learning and thinking, and I think there's other situations where technology is sometimes misused in the name of inquiry, but is not necessarily doing its job to enhance the learning and the thinking. So for me, it's all about not necessarily the technologies, but the purposeful use and planning of how you're using those technologies. I've seen a lot of teachers who have used technology in their classroom to enhance their learning. So using technology, iPads, computers, search engines, internet for finding information, sorting out information, using a lot of apps and programs for sharing information, making podcasts, making videos, keeping a blog, explain everything. And then on the flip side, I've also seen a lot of teachers that think that using technology is the same thing as inquiry, and often that can be going down a dangerous path where it's, here's a device, go learn, here's a device, research this, here's a device, make a movie. There's a really interesting quote that technology can't be a mask for thin thinking, and I think that's a good reflective piece, that it's not necessarily what technology can I use, but how can I use technology to enhance the thinking and enhance the learning, not necessarily how can I use technology to equal inquiry. So for me, it's all about how to use it. I think a lot of ways to incorporate and to facilitate collaborative inquiry is through things like Twitter and Skype and FaceTime. Those are pieces of technology that I've seen teachers use really effectively that have allowed students to collaborate in an inquiry-based atmosphere with students outside of their classroom, outside of their school, outside of their country. Again, I think there's a lot of purposeful planning in how you're using that, why you're using that, and how you're teaching the students how to use that. And that, for me, is where more of the focus is. Less about the tool and the technology, and more about the purpose and the planning for that.
Okay, thank you so much.
How does inquiry function as it applies to our students here at AIS?
Because AIS is an IB school following the primary years program, where it's all about transdisciplinary learning, and actually inquiry is the basis of everything. So the students are going through an inquiry cycle during their units, during their day, their normal day, and that is how they learn.
All right, and how do teachers teach literacy through inquiry, specifically considering that our students are mostly SLL learners?
We have got at our school quite a few SLL learners, or most of them actually, and for us what works at AIS is all about concept-based teaching. So we use concepts that are used across the curriculum and across all the subjects, especially for students who are in an Arabic classroom, so that they can relate back and get those fundamental connections that they can make through their inquiry.
All right, and how does collaborative inquiry affect student learning as it relates to literacy and in general, basically?
It's very important because the students learn from each other and they learn with each other. So if a student is working in a group and they are collaborating together to find an answer and to do the inquiry, it normally leads them to go even further because they pick up things from each other. And in that way, they are all striving to reach more than what they normally would.